Did you know 52 kilometers north of Calcutta, there is a place called Bandel, which is actually a Portuguese name for a Bengali word called Bandor? 1498, Portuguese arrived in India trying to establish themselves in Calicut, near Kappa. And eventually, they established themselves in Goa, Daman and Diu, Dadra Nagar Haveli. And by early 17th century, they started to establish themselves on the coasts of Hooghly River. And they founded a place called Bandel, which is basically a Portuguese name for the Bengali word Bondar. In fact, it is rather very interesting to even observe how Portuguese entered Calcutta or entered Bengal. Portuguese used to do timely raids on the coasts of Bengal. And eventually in Bengali songs and Bengali folk songs, it became synonymous with the word called Harmad, which actually means Portuguese armadas or Portuguese and Spanish armadas, especially the looting raids which Portuguese were conducting on the coasts of Bengal. By 1511, when Alfonso de Albuquerque, one of the most popular Portuguese governor generals, occupied the Malacca, he became synonymous with some of these armadas which were establishing itself in the Bengal coast. Bengal coast was very, very important for these guys because from Bengal, they could actually go all the way around till Southeast Asia, China, and even establish their operations in entire Asia and China. As time went, Portuguese started to have very troubled relations with the Sultan of Bengal, Muhammad Shah. In approximately 1535-1536, around that period, Sher Shah Sur, the famous Afghan ruler of Bengal, eventually did a deal with the Portuguese. He allowed Portuguese to establish a settlement in what we today call Satgaon, a region where Bengalis could do trade. Portuguese could do trade with Bengalis and would not disturb Bengalis in their trade. And at the same time, Portuguese were also permitted to establish themselves in Chittagong. It was near this famous settlement of Satgaon, which Bengalis permitted Portuguese to establish, that Portuguese eventually established a small settlement known as Bandel. Yeah, basically a Portuguese colloquial name for Bengali name of the port called Bandar. Even in Inayat Khan's Shah Jahan Nama, famous book of this period, Bandel is mentioned as one of the very important trading posts. As the importance of Satgaon declined, Bandel started to become very, very, very important for the Portuguese. And the Portuguese traded everything from textiles to spices to timber to gunpowder. And some of the most important trading centers of Portuguese, particularly on the east of India, was actually the Bandel region. Eventually, Christian missionaries also played a significant role in this region. And to be honest, the Augustinian order of the 1599 spreading Catholic Christianity on the east coast of India was established at Bandel. But in 1632, a very important year in the Portuguese history, Portuguese got into serious troubles with the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan was very annoyed about the activities of the Christian missionaries on the east coast, particularly from Satgaon and Bandel. And the entire territory of Bandel was ransacked by the Mughals. The Mughals looted every inch of it. In fact, in his book Pacha Nama, which talks about Shah Jahan's conquests of India and Shah Jahan's rule, Abdul Hamid Lahori talks about how gloriously Bandel was looted by Shah Jahan and Portuguese were terrorized and horrified by the Mughal raids. It was only much later in 1665, as one of the travelers of this period, Francois Bernier, says, Portuguese attempted to re-establish Hooghly and Bandel with nearly 8,000 to 9,000 Portuguese Christians settling again in Bandel, and the Bandel Church, the famous Bandel Church, was established. And as time went, other colonial powers also started to come and settle in Bandel, from Dutch to English to French. And slowly but gradually, Bandel restarted to gain its famous glory. Among all its greatest contributions of Bandel and Portuguese to India, one of the greatest contributions is the Bandel cheese. In fact, a format of broken milk. Back in the days, the culture was that broken milk was synonymous with somebody's death. And when Portuguese and Europeans arrived in India, finding cheese, particularly cottage cheese, which is very similar to Italian ricotta cheese, was very difficult in India. And eventually, it was in Bandel and Satgaon. During one of their travels, the Portuguese figured out that milk in India was broken at the time of somebody's death in the family as a symbol of ending of life. This broken milk, eventually, Portuguese used a muslin cloth to strain the water off and started creating the Bandel cheese, which commonly later came to be known as Chena. This Chena or Bandel cheese is what today we call the famous and the glorious paneer of India. That's some of the important contributions of Portuguese in India. Let's keep watching me, keep subscribing to this channel, guys. I'll keep putting up more videos and some interesting history. We will see history from an entirely different perspective. Together, let's enjoy history.